But definitely the Torah, of course, does not tell you just unify in one area. We have 613 precepts. And you should see your goal of life in terms of unification. Okay, now, let's say I go to visit a sick person. Okay? Bikur cholim. So the basic thing is taking care of his needs. And we should know Bikur cholim is first of all taking care of his needs. His needs is not just to bring him a pill, sometimes to go to the bank instead of him. You should know that this is really a mitzvah of Bikur cholim. Can I go to the bank instead of you? He's taking care of his needs. Now the emotional is showing empathy, right? And the spiritual is to have meaning. You know, this is a great experience. I'm sure you can grow out of it, etc. So it's physical, emotional, and spiritual. And this is not, the precept cannot teach you immediately there. Because all the components appear in Judaism, but you cannot find them unless you are aware that you want always to unify them. Let's say child, okay? I want to educate a child. I want him to do a certain mitzvah. So I try to use physical pleasure. I give him a candy. All right? Now I use emotional thing. I hug him. And I say, you created an angel now. You see? I evoke spiritual motivation with him. So I use physical motivation, emotional motivation, and spiritual motivation. Do you understand that? So once you develop this way of thinking, I want always to unify the three components. Actually, if I'll tell you, very easily you can find yourself the three. But we are not aware that we should try to unify. Sometimes we just give a candy, sometimes we just hug. But once you unify things start to unify within his personality. Because you should understand, we are torn apart with these components. And once we live in a unified form, it unifies our personality. So therefore, all the experiences, once they are in a unified form, it changes my life. That's why love is such an important healing process of us. Because if we do love in a proper way, which is lust, love, and covenant, right? If we do it properly, it has a fantastic impact on my personality that it unifies my components. And the utmost suffering of us is that the components are torn apart. And the utmost pleasure of ours that the components are unified. Does it become clear? Okay? You're absolutely right, but at the same time, there is higher unification. I'll explain. Let's assume now I go to my parents, okay? I go to my parents, and on one hand is a physical thing. I serve them, right? It's kibud orim. I serve them, I make a cup of tea, etc. On the other hand, I give them emotional empathy. On the third level, I regard them like God. You know, I stand up, I show them, right? It's much more respect. Is because he's a partner of God. It's a spiritual message I give to them. You are very holy to me. Okay? So this is unification. So you're right in each area. But now, I'd like to move a higher level. Let's assume I want to unify between my job, my wife, and my parents. So this is a much more complicated unification.
And much harder.
Yes. Now, so actually when we talk about unification, the simplest and really is, that, as you said, in each area to unify. And that's what the Torah, the precepts teaches us. Really, in each area, when I deal with something, is how to unify. But when I come to conflicts, then things become more problematic. Let's say my wife says, look, you devote too much time to your parents, okay? Or you devote too much time to your work, right? Etc., etc. So here now, even though, let's assume I do know to unify each area separately, but I still have a problem how to unify the whole thing together, right? This is a much higher and more complicated level of unification. Clear? Now, for that, one has to know to play chess. To know to play chess. Yeah, understand. Explain. Namely, I have to know what is the name of the game. When I want to grow, I'll give you an example which does not deal directly with the issue which I raised. I remember in one of the first seminars, I think about 25 years ago, we said that if you know to use proper spiritual principles, it can solve, or not solve, can make you know how to decide every problem of your life. So one challenged me and he says, look, if you show me that the Torah can give me rules by which I would know should I buy a car now or not, I'll make tshuva. I don't believe that Torah can give me rules and give me principles, accurate principles, by which I should know should I buy a car or not. This is in Israel, this is not America. In America, everybody has a car, right? So I said, well, that's a very easy question. Okay, go ahead. And eventually, I think we solved the problem, and he made tshuva. Okay, this is fair enough for me. I said, all right, let's see. Let's see. And this is not, as I said, it's not answering directly my question, but it's a very good example of a higher unification by higher principles. Let's assume now, I want to know what is the most important thing for me. Time. Time? Because life is so precious. I want to do so many things. I want to do precepts. I want to grow. Time. Now, so therefore now, when I have to decide should I buy a car or not, the most important thing is the question of time. If I would have more time, I can visit my parents, I can go shi'uri Torah, I can take my kids outings, I don't know. Time is a very, very important thing. Now, so I want to analyze now, for you to buy a car, can you afford it from your regular salary? Or, which happens to many people in Israel, that because he wants to have a car, instead of 8 hours a day, he has to work 10 hours a day. So now that means in terms of time consuming, it costs him 2 hours a day to have a car. Now let's see how much time does it save you. And it seems it saved him 1 hour a day. So that means it's a bad business. Don't buy a car. Do you understand? It's a very interesting way. Once you have a higher principle, you can combine many, many areas and make that's what I said in chess. When you have a higher principle, you can unify all the pieces and say, should I do the move or I should not do the move? My wife is a marriage consultant, and many times we see a very serious problem, that a conflict between the relationship with his wife and the relationship with the parents. Okay? So see? Very important precepts. But they contradict each other. Now he should know what is prior. If he does not know what is prior, you'd lose the game. And therefore in the Torah, they don't only teach us precepts, but they teach us also priorities of precepts. I'll give an example. Let's say what we call it mitzvat aseh, the mitzvat lo ta'aseh. Mitzvat aseh is you should do, and mitzvat lo ta'aseh you should not do. And let's say it happens, it contradicts each other. So the Torah tells you what is prior. So the Torah is not just a set of values, but because there is an utmost, a higher goal, it has rules how to reconcile conflicts. So therefore, whenever there is conflict, you should go to the higher goal and find how to do that. So therefore, so we teach them, look, let's assume, right, that your wife and your mother cannot get along. And if you to come to a judge, let's say that the judge would say that your wife is right in 20% and your mother is right in 80%. Okay? Let's assume so. What should you do? Let's assume your wife cannot change now. So what? You should run court here? No. You should know what is your highest goal. You should have a home, a Jewish home, and a happy home. And if they cannot get along together, move to America. I'm joking, but I'm serious. And sometimes we instructed people, move to another town. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. You have to build a happy and stable home. And if they cannot get along together, find some trip. Get a farm. You should know what is prior. So when I mean unification, this is a very cruel way, but it's sometimes we have to know to resolve conflicts. But why? Because we have a higher value, which all the values emerge out of that, and these higher values that tells me what is the goal of my life, all the time unify all the other values. So therefore, when there is a conflict in the lower level, I can always go to the higher level and resolve the conflict. I'll give you another way of looking at things. I want you to know, at each point of my life, what do I want to do? Do I want to do all the precepts? I'll get nuts, so they have to put me in an hospital very soon. This is not what I want to do. At each point, I want to do only one thing, the right move. You know, in chess, if someone wants to win the game, you would lose. Namely, you would think, and you would have to think about all the possibilities until the end of the game. There is no chance you can do it. So don't think about all the options. Just think, do I do now the right move? And this is a success. To do the right move now.
How do you know it's the right move?
And if the right move is now to go out of the city, I did success. This is not a compromise. Whenever I do the right move, this is not compromise. This is success. God has put me into a test. You know, Avraham Avinu had to choose between two of his sons. You think it's a compromise? It's not a compromise. This is a success. He made the right decision. God gives us many tests. I described just unification of the different components. But then the game becomes much more complicated because God runs us into unbelievable tests. And then unification comes on a much, much higher level. And really, in order to have peace of mind and serenity in that, is that I don't want to win now. I want to do the right move. At each point of my life, I want to do the right move. I want that, and I want that. I want to succeed with my in career and that. No, I just want to do the right move. And this gives you it's unbelievable peace of mind. I did the right move. Relax. That's all. Maybe I'll give you just a moment, an example from a totally different area. I came to a big rabbi, consulting him, and all of a sudden came a question about an operation. People ask him, should they do the operation? Now, let's say there are two options. Should they do or another treatment? And the risk is like that. And should he take the risk, etc., etc.? He took about 20 seconds and gave an answer. So after they went out, I said, look, Rav, I want to ask you. You just now decided a question of death and life. And you gave only 20 seconds to that. You might be wrong. The guy might die. How can you decide so easily, giving 20 minutes, 20 seconds to a question of death and life? So he told me, look, I am not a prophet, and I don't control death and life. And once I said to do the operation, I don't mean to say this operation will be successful. Only God knows. The only thing which I know is what is the right move in this case. In this case, there are two options. The statistics which I get from the doctors is such and such, and then I apply spiritual rule which risk I should take, and because this question is known to me already, therefore I could give the answer very easily. Therefore I should say they should take the risk. But does not mean the risk is going to succeed. the guy might, chas v'shalom, die. But if tomorrow they come to me with the same question, I give the same answer. Because I apply